waxing my own clothes the last little bit because it's pretty cool. So I want to talk about some of the differences of the waxes that I use and why I use them. I've waxed a bunch of things in the last little while with different blends of the different waxes, and this batch right here seems to be the best of the wax combination. So I'll just kind of explain what the differences to all these waxes are and why you want certain properties and what they're going to do to your clothes if you use this stuff. So I want to talk about the different types of waxes that I use for this making the wax clothing that I've been doing. By no means am I an expert. This is just what I have found the best blend for me and why I've chose these different waxes. So the first wax I went with was beeswax, 100% beeswax. One, I have a lot of it, and two, it's really good for the clothing or materials to provide water repellency and durability to the fibers. Get rancid or whatever, like it won't go bad. So it's a good wax to have for that kind of thing. So that's a pretty terrible explanation. But the next one is the microcrystalline wax. This wax is important because it provides the flexibility and the malleability to the mixture. So you can kind of see I'm just pushing this. This is just room temperature. I'm just pushing it with my thumb. And it's coming off, and I can mold it and it'll stay in that shape. It's very flexible, which is what you would want in the wax that you're using for your clothing, because you want it to be able to flex and move as you move. Otherwise you'll create weak spots in the fabric that just, as over time, it'll only flex in that one spot, and eventually you'll have a failure in the fabric. So by having a wax that's malleable and flexible, like microcrystalline wax is, it adds those properties to the already good properties of the beeswax. Now the next wax is paraffin wax. Paraffin wax adds stiffness and rigidity to the mix. So there's a fine blend of adding paraffin wax and counteracting all of the properties of the microcrystalline wax. And you can see with the paraffin wax, it's very brittle. Materials freezing, you're going to get a lot of cracks and things like that, and it's not going to perform the way you want it to. The microcrystalline wax also keeps the wax where you want it by allowing it to flex. It doesn't flake off and go to the ground. It stays on the fibers of the fabric and allows you to have to reapply a lot less often. A few years ago I bought these Tincloth pants, but they're been around for a few years, so I think I can re-wax them. So what you're going to need is you're going to want some of my proprietary blend of wax. So you can see that this wax has some malleability, a lot of flexibility to it, but it can still kind of come apart a bit. So it's a bit of a blend of the microcrystalline and the paraffin. And then we have the wonderful properties of the beeswax in there, giving it its structure and its sustenance. The heat gun to help me melt it in. If you've got a hairdryer, that works just as fine. So what I do, take your chunk of, I don't even know what it's called. You just rub it on. Gently just kind of go over where you want it to be. So I just go through, put a bit of wax on top. Kind of like my first layer. And then I use like a nail brush cleaner to help me spread the wax. So I just use my nail brush cleaners, and as I'm heating the wax, This just helps push everything into all the spots, and it's way easier to move the wax around with something like this. So after the first kind of round, you can kind of see where you got and where you went a little light, and then you just take your chunk and go back over the areas you want to highlight, give a little bit of attention to. And if you get a big glob where you don't want it, just get like something, just scrape it off. Yeah. That's fine. Hair dryer works just as fine. And as you do it, you'll see the wax melt into the fabric, and then you'll know you've got saturation or whatever you call it. And I can decide that I want to go over and do this again. I want more wax coverage, which I don't think is a bad idea, especially on the bottom front cuff. This is what's going to be walking through the bush, covering your boot. So you might want a little bit of extra protection down here. Now, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but I can see that there's a little bit of extra wax there, where there's a little too much there as well, and here. And that's where this brush just comes in so handy. You just get your brush, and it just spreads it out and makes it more consistent and even, and a good coverage. And so you can see the difference of the re-waxed and then no wax, and I can keep doing that if I wish, or I can push much harder when I go through my spreading out of the beeswax. Thanks for getting this far in the video. I appreciate you watching. Like I said, I'm no expert. This is just what my experience has led me to believe, and through trial and error, I think it's pretty good. Works quite well as a does what you're going to want it to do. So if you want to make it yourself, 40% beeswax, 40% microcrystalline, and 20% paraffin wax. That should get you going. Yeah, thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Let me know if you have any tips or suggestions of how to improve the wax. But I think it works pretty good. Does what I'm going to want it to do. Thanks.